Welcome to the Piping Show. If you enjoy the content we create here on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. I've spoken to Ali Levack in a wee interview, so looking forward to seeing that later on. But here's Helen with the news.
Entries are now open for the CLASP World Amateur Solo Piping Competition, which takes place during Piping Live. To find out more about this event and register, go to www.theclasp.co.uk. Piping Live has opened applications for suppliers to join the trade fair on Thursday the 17th of August. This takes place in the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall. To find out more, go to www.pipinglive.co.uk/events and scroll down until you see the Piping Live Trade Fair. Events coming up on Saturday the 24th of June include the European Pipe Band Championships in Duthie Park, Aberdeen. Good luck to all the pipe bands that are taking part. There's also the Ceres Highland Games in Fife, the Kingsville Highland Games in Ontario in Canada, and the Drumtochty Highland Games in Aberdeenshire. For all the information about events taking place this weekend, go to www.bagpipe.news.
Hello there. For today's history segment, I have to say a big thank you to John Mulhern, who's produced this poster for us to look at. John was up at the National Piping Centre, Otago Street, formerly the College of Piping, and found this poster for a recital that was held in 1953 in Campbelltown, hosted by the College of Piping. So we can see at the top, the College of Piping, with support of the Arts Council of Great Britain, is presenting a piping recital at the Argyle Hotel in Campbelltown 70 years ago in 1953. If we look down at the artists, or artistes as they're listed on this flyer, it's quite an impressive lineup. The first is Donald McPherson. Now, we've spoken about Donald on this show before. As a matter of fact, episode 6. My first episode hosting was with Katrina and Fiona McPherson, Donald's daughters. If you'd like to learn more about Donald, I'd encourage you to go ahead and go watch that episode. However, Donald did not play at the recital. Duncan Johnston stood in to take his place. Also playing were Thomas Pearston and Seamus McNeill, who co-founded the College of Piping in 1944. Duncan McCall was also playing. Now, I found very little about Duncan McCall in my research, other than that he was heavily involved with the SPA and was an adjudicator for many years. And then lastly, a tangential association with this week's guest, Ali Levack, we have John McFadgen, whose brother Ian McFadgen taught Ali. There is a report of this concert, or a review rather, in the Piping Times, November of 1953. It reports that about 60 people attended, and it was a rousing success. Indeed, this concert was one of the early versions of the concerts hosted by the Kintyre Piping Society. So if you'd like to read more about this particular recital, including some of the tunes that were played, you can go ahead and, if you have it, look it out. Otherwise, visit the archive website hosted by the National Piping Centre and look up the November of 1953 Piping Times.
Levack.
Hello, Ailis. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Would you like me to refer to you as Ali or Ali Levack or what?
Just Mr. Levack is fine.
Mr.
No,
Levack.
Ali is fine.
So we're here with Ali Levack, known to most as just Levack, and we're just going to chat a wee bit about kind of your piping experience and maybe start with how it all kicked off in the first place. What was like the reason you got so into the pipes and the whistles and everything in the first place?
Yeah, I think it probably kicked off. The first time I ever saw pipes was going to, my grandparents used to live in Strathpeffer, and they used to look after me for a lot of the time from when we were born, and then we used to go to the square in Strathpeffer, and the pipe band would play on a Saturday night in the summer. So that was my first encounter with bagpipes, and then I think I was about 7 or 8, and someone from the pipe band walked past, and I think I touched the bagpipes, and then I said to my dad, I touched the bagpipes. And then my grandfather Donald, who stayed in Strathpeffer, he was from Harris, and he played pipes and fiddle, and his brother Arch, he played accordion, and when I said I was interested in maybe learning pipes at the age of 9, he kind of grabbed the opportunity with both hands and put a chanter in my hands and started giving me lessons. And my first official tutor was a boy called Benny Manson from Strathy. Okay. So that was my first kind of entry into pipes. And my grandfather, Donald, was definitely kind of the main influence as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned there Harris there. I believe you've got some links to North US as well, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a wee bit all over the place. There's Oban as well, Uist, Harris and Skye as well. Mm-hmm. So both my father's side and my mother's side are Uist, and you probably know yourself, everyone's related to everyone.
Yeah.
In that kind of neck of the woods, so yeah.
Yeah, cool. And what was kind of, a lot of small communities have a wee pipe band or a wee youth kind of music group. What were some of the organisations or the wee groups that you were involved with growing up?
Fish Ross is the main one, and then probably one of the only ones. I never joined a pipe band, never been part of a pipe band. And not ashamed to admit, it's probably from a selfish point of view. It was just like, I would just want it for myself, not really a team player. And
that's what we look for.
Yeah. But then, just speaking about that for a second, I think, for me, I think a piper can express their style more when you hear them by themselves, as opposed to, I really appreciate pipe bands, and I find it amazing that 20 pipers can sound like one. But I myself prefer when I hear one and you can differentiate between their styles and stuff. But yeah, the Fish Ross, I think I probably started being involved with the Fish from around primary 5. So however old you might be around then, 11 or 12.
Maybe a wee bit younger, maybe like 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah. So with going to the Alipole Fish, the residency week, and then all through primary school and high school as well. Mm-hmm. And then there used to be masterclass piping lessons in Strathpeffer. In the Brunston Lodge, the Fish put that on, and they had Norman Gillis and John Burgess, so I used to have lessons between the two of those guys as well.
Yeah.
So it was great. Yeah. I used to go to his house as well in Saltburn. He was a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was kind of, I think for a lot of pipers anyway, they begin with a chanter, they're kind of quite inspired by the sound or the look of the pipes. They take up lessons on the chanter, and then they kind of go down this route of getting better and better at this one thing. And it very much seems to me about you that there's been a lot more musical influence from the beginning. And what other kind of music lessons did you get, and how did you sort of develop over your teenage years? Was there anything in particular that you were kind of influenced by?
I think from when I started playing at 9 till about 15, I went to Dingle Academy, got private lessons with Ian McFadgen and my grandfather, and it was just piping competitions, and I'd never played with anyone else. I did all right in piping competitions, but then the only place I was getting other influences of music from were my mother and father, because they weren't traddies, they weren't trad heads. He used to listen to, he was a punk head and was a big fan of Shane MacGowan and the Nipple Erectors. That was Shane MacGowan's first ever band in London, and Shane MacGowan and the Popes, and then the Pogues. And I remember the first time he ever introduced me to a band called The Band. He just sat me down on the couch, and I think I was about 13, and it was a song called The Weight. And I love that kind of music. And I felt like that was my kind of only other type of music I was getting other than piping competition music. But then when I was about 15, I went to Plockton Music School. So then that opened my mind to other types of music massively as well, like you were saying.
Yeah. And did it help to have other people of your age who were learning music? And obviously it would be multi-instrument. There'd be a very small number of pipers, I would imagine, in each year, and even across the whole music school. So how was that kind of learning alongside other people, and and that kind of experience of being in a group of people who were doing something at a specific time in a specific place.
Yeah, it was freeing. Yeah, it was great, and because with you know yourself with piping competitions, it's rigid, and I love that as well. The kind of is that the right word? Institutionalized. It's just like there's a regime, not a regime, regiment. It's very regimented. Sorry, but then like going into the music school and learning with other people my age and different instruments and stuff, it was like mind altering in a way, and like, oh, this is weird, like playing with other people. And because all I'd known was just playing pipes with myself, and you have to learn a second instrument when you go to Plockton. So I was like, what is the closest instrument to pipes that would give me the least hassle? So whistle was the closest thing, and then Hamish Napier started giving me lessons, and then he put a whistle in my hand, and then that kind of, it's a more, so I don't know, there's 2 octaves in the whistle, so there's more range, so then there's a whole other repertoire that's brought to you as well, and that kind of opens your mind, and then different keys as well, so you can play with so many different other people then as well.
I suppose also like tunes that you already know, you can learn on a different instrument, and then within that instrument you can play it in different keys, and it can have different sort of qualities and different sort of voicings when you hear it played in different parts of the instrument, and I suppose that's something you don't really get to experience if you only play stuff on a chanter. So yeah, that's cool. And another thing that interests me is when people are sitting, you know, I've had some of these experiences where I've been on the other side of the world and thinking, because I sat there and practiced playing this and then got experience playing it in public, that's the only reason that I'm sitting on this flight, or it's the only reason I'm sitting in this place, like having a meal somewhere.
A mad feeling, that,
So what are some of your highlights, some of the places in the world you've been where you've maybe thought, I'm only here because I'm playing music?
Anytime you're abroad, kind of, and then you kind of pinch yourself. I did a stint in Disney for 8 months. I lived in Florida, and I love America. But then I think it was halfway through the time, it was like, if I didn't practice the penny whistle, then I wouldn't be here. It's so weird. So it's amazing when you think about it. It's like it hangs on a thread, kind of in a weird way as well. But yeah, it takes you so many places, and yeah, it's so nice to hear this, like other folk have that feeling as well. Yeah.
And see, like when you're not on the stage, are you pretty much just doing what you do on the stage anyway? Like, is playing music to that level and for that amount of time, is that part of like your day-to-day life? Would you see it as like a necessity, or is it something that you just do when you've got a gig?
Playing? Yeah, I think so. Like my band Project Smock, we just got back from tour last week. We were in Ireland and UK, and then I said to my girlfriend, like, anytime I come back from a tour, for me, the immediate week after getting back, there's a bit of a lull, or like it's just like a come down in a way. You just have to readapt to normal life, to being at home, because it's not normal life. Tour, you're on the road, moving up the whole time, and it's so fast paced, and I love it. And it's probably just an adjustment period. But yeah, I think you have to kind of, I wouldn't say I'm like that all the time, no. I have to kind of adjust.
Yeah.
Both like going into a tour and then coming out of it as well.
Yeah.
Totally.
And are there times during the year where you've got like planned downtime where you can go and like write new tunes, come up with new ideas, and where do you tend to do that? Do you stay in Glasgow to do that, or do you maybe like go home for a bit?
Yeah, I love going up the road, like in Maryborough, where my folks are from, and when lockdown hit, I went straight up the road, and there's a cabin in the back garden, and the space you have up the road and the landscape is so much more open than here in Glasgow. I sometimes feel a wee bit trapped in Glasgow, not near the coast, and for me, that space opens up tunes and like creativity as well. Martin Bennett actually said the opposite. I think in the documentary when he's driving around Mull for the documentary for the Grit album, he said, I think it's a load of nonsense, this thing that a place inspires people. But everyone's different, I suppose.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it does, yeah.
Yeah. And what are some things that you've got coming up? I know you'll be just getting into the kind of festival season now, so what are some cool things that you've got in the diary, and what are you kind of working on?
So Smock, my band Project Smock, we're going back into the studio at the end of June to record a second album, and it should be finished by around like October, November. But we've done the demos at Pablo's house in his studio, and we're already so much happier than we were with Bayview, the first album. So we just can't wait to go in to Glowworm and record that at the end of this month. And then busy enough with kind of like festivals, Tidy, Head Celt, and stuff through the summer. And I'm doing quite a lot of gigs with Valtos this summer. So it'll be interesting. And then I'm actually moving to Galway in September.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm leaving Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah, for good.
For good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll never see you again. Well, that's really cool, and thanks for chatting to us
No worries.
to get a bit of an idea of where you've come from and now where you're going as well. So, all the best in Galway, and thanks very much.
No worries. Cheers.
Cheers.